Hi all, welcome to our session on object-oriented programming with C++. In this session, we will be discussing the following topics: function overloading, name mangling, static and constant keyword. So let's begin by function overloading. Function overloading is a feature of C++ programming language that enables multiple functions to have the same name provided they differ in the parameters. That is, the overloaded functions should differ either in the number of arguments or the order of arguments or in the data type of the arguments provided. That is, for example, I have three functions here by name max. They do differ in the parameters provided. First case, it works on two integer arguments. Second works with three float arguments, and the third with three float arguments. The return type of a function has no role in overloading. That is, it doesn't matter if the return type remains the same or they are different. Let's implement this and understand through a program. Let's implement a function add that is taking two integer arguments and returning the sum of those two integers. So the return type of my function is int. Let my function name be add and let it take two integer arguments. Now let it return the addition of 2, that is a plus b. I'll implement one more add function, but now let it work on float. So float add float a comma float b, and I'll implement it like returning the addition of a and b. One more function I'll implement. Now let it work on double. Double add, let it take three arguments now. Double a comma double b comma double c, and let it return a plus b plus c. Now let's invoke these add function within the main. So I'll call the first add function here. So say sum of integers. So add, pass two integer entities. So let me pass 1 and 2. Let me copy paste this statement. Now second add function is working on float. So sum of float, you have to pass two floating values here. So let me make this as floating constant. So 1.2 f. Let me make this as a float 2.5 f. Same way, I'll call the third add function which is working on double. So add of let me say 1.5 comma 2.9 comma one more arguments I have to pass here because it works on three arguments. So now I can say I have implemented function overloading because I have three functions here by the same name add. The difference is in their parameter list. First add function takes two integer arguments. Second takes two float. So here between the first and second, the count of arguments are the same but they differ in the data type. Third one, it works on double arguments and the count of arguments is 3. So you can overload a function in C++ when they differ in their parameter list. Let's build and run and verify our output. So our program works fine. You can verify your output here. Sum of integers is 3, sum of float 3.7, sum of double is 7.8. So this is function overloading in C++. The main advantage of function overloading is to improve the code readability and allows code reusability. Overloading follows single interface with multiple implementations, or you can look at function overloading as a kind of compile time polymorphism. Compile time because the binding of these function calls with function definitions happen at the compile time. Now polymorphic behavior because you have a single interface, that is your function name, and with multiple implementations. As seen with the previous example, you had multiple functions with the same name add, but they had different implementations. First case it was finding the addition of two integers. Second case it was implemented to compute the addition of two float. So function overloading is a kind of compile time polymorphism in C++. Now let's link this with a real-time example. We all do use mobile phones and we are familiar with the task of saving a new contact. Suppose you want to save two numbers for one person. You must have a function which will take the two numbers and the person name as argument to some function, let's say create contact. Now, it's not necessary that every person will have two numbers. Many other contacts might have only a single number. In such a situation, instead of creating another function with different name to save one number for a contact, what you can do is that you can have the same name of the function create contact. But instead of taking two numbers as parameter, you can take only one number as parameter in it. This is polymorphism. We have seen that our language supports the function overloading feature. Using this feature, we can create functions with same name. The only difference is in their arguments or parameter list. Now the question comes here is how the C++ distinguishes overloaded functions in object code. In the object code, it changes the name by adding information about the arguments. The technique which is applied here is called the name mangling. C++ has no standardized technique for name mangling, so different compiler uses different techniques. For example, if you have an overloaded function by name fun, it internally changes the name to something like _fun_i. Another example you can look at is function fun, which is overloaded and it takes an argument that is double. So internally, this might change its name to like _fun_d double. So name mangling technique avoid naming conflicts when you overload functions in C++.